Hello and welcome finally to the season 1, episode 7 of Knitting with Anxiety and Stress podcast. It's taken me an extra week to get this recorded, and we'll cover why. I believe I may have developed an autoimmune disorder, but we'll get to that in the podcast. This episode is going to cover my WIPS update and a health update. There are quite a lot of autoimmune disorders, and just a little bit, and they all present in different ways. But it's important to know what those are, right? We don't always know what other people are going through and what creates struggles for them that can end up magnifying your anxiety and your stress. Let's put it that way. So when we use knitting as an anxiety and stress management tool, we begin differently than you might expect. If you're new here, I am repeating this part in every episode of season 1 because I cannot assume that anyone has seen the very first episode where I went over it. And we need to be intentional when we're using our knitting as a tool for success, because failing to plan is planning to fail. So before we start any knitting session, and I always do this before I sit down to record as well, we need to wash our hands. This is not just a mental focus ritual. It respects the product that we are making when we knit or when we crochet, because I know a lot of you do both. I don't really. I pretty much exclusively stick to knitting. This is a hard lesson learned by me at age 7. My grandmother told me that I needed to do this, and I did not listen and ended up embedding dirt from in the creases in my fingers and my hands into the knitting that I was making, my first knitting project. And there was no amount of washing that was going to get that out. It never came out. If you want to hear the full story on that, that's in episode 1. Next, we're going to center ourselves with intention. This is extremely important for focus, for nervous system regulation, particularly these days when there's multiple crazy things, you know, in the news, in your YouTube feed. Even when you go to the store, you're going to see something that just makes you think, what the heck? So we need to practice this, especially before we sit down to knit. We do not want all of that stress and upheaval and feeling unbalanced to go into the product that we're knitting. So let's do that now. We're going to place our right hand, not necessarily over your heart. This is not the Pledge of Allegiance, but like right here, because your main airway is in here, right? And we're going to take 4 slow breaths in, hold it for a count of 4, and then slow breath out. So that's 4 times of that. So 4 is important because life happens in a circle. we have the 4 seasons, we have the academic year. There's many parts of life that are in a circle, you know. The yearly calendar is in a circle, you know. January comes back around every year. So let's go ahead and start with that. So let's breathe in. And give a little brush off. Maybe get rid of a little bit of tension in your neck. So we want to remember that being organized, not just before you start a knitting project, but every time when you sit down to work on it, you need to go into it with a calm mind, as calm a nervous system as possible. And I have used knitting as a stress reliever for years. Usually that's socks. I saved that for because it's pretty mindless. I don't do a lot of heeled socks anymore, though. Because I've decided I don't like darning. Anyway, but this is a critical aspect if you're going to be able to use knitting as a stress and anxiety management tool. If you've been diagnosed with anxiety like I have, it's even more important. This isn't just for people who are looking to alleviate the anxiety that they're currently feeling. It's also for those who have been diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. So this helps us stay balanced and centered when life throws us sideways, right? So let's, I'm looking at my notes. I'm actually going to switch up the order that I wrote it a little bit. So what I'm going to show you first, my youngest daughter bought me this planner. And with my anxiety and tracking issues, I really suck at digital solutions for planners and keeping track of things. It's pretty much out of sight, out of mind. Excuse me. I need to clean my desk again. It's obviously getting a little dusty in here. I have had in the past problems with also forgetting that I have a physical planner. This thing is amazing though. It has stickers. I could actually start to use it right away because it had like, it's got a page for goals with different topics, and you don't have to fill all of them in. But it also started, this was a Mother's Day gift, by the way. It actually started, and it's also got this part, which I have not decided how to fill that out yet. So I haven't. It's actually, it says July, but it actually has May and June before it. So I was really happy because I could just ditch the other one. And there's a there's a bucket list for each year that you can fill out. There's a motivational page before it actually starts. And then it has a place for notes in the back. It has a laminated list of holidays, and it also has a map of the US with the capitals. And I actually have been using this more than I think I've used any other physical planner. I have no idea where she got this. Let's see, the brand is the Every Girl for Day Designer. Tabbed weekly and monthly planning calendar with notes. Plan for success, career tips, articles, worksheets, and more. So I obviously it was a gift. So I have absolutely no idea how much she paid for it. She did a really good job at picking this cover. Even though my desk is white, this stands out. It stands out if it's stacked inside all of my, like my language diary, my research notebook. It still stands out to my eye. So I would start looking at Target. Okay. Then I want to show you, hang on, I haven't done share screen in a while. I want to show you, let me minimize here for a minute and make sure I've got this. Oh, crap, it won't let me minimize while I've got the recording on. Okay, well, we're just gonna do this all messy. If you can see here, I am almost entirely healed up. Keep that in mind. This is a polyester allergy that I developed last I want to say October. Just broke out. Okay. This is almost entirely healed up. And if I had known it was going to take over 6 months, I probably would not be here in a good mental state. That's the only way I can describe it. But I wanted to show you the picture I took. A month ago, we went to, same daughter that got me the planner. We went up to the Macklemore Goodwill, and where did I put that? Hang on. We went up to the Macklemore Goodwill, and I got this dress. I don't remember the name brand, but it's it retailed. You see where I've had to cut the polyester lining out of it. And my back is still broken out a month later. I didn't have that dress on for more than 30 seconds. So let me show you the picture. I was able to cut most of it out except for the back that is smocked. And let me, oh, that's one of the other projects I got done. Hang on. This one. Okay. You can see how the polyester was smocked in with a fabric. So I could cut the lining out everywhere else, but then I had to get some thicker cotton and stitch over the over the back. So I have that done on both sides. And then let me switch this back to the other one that I want to show you here in a minute. And I'll minimize it. Come on. Okay. Then I've got, because I watched a lot of videos on how to carbon copy your clothes without taking them apart. I have this that's going to go, let me go back to full screen here. Okay. This that's going to go inside, and you can see why I did the extra cotton, because this silk and cotton blend is so thin. And I actually am covering, wait, that's on the inside. I am covering the seams with a woven cloth tape to give it a little bit of structure. And this is just the top. Yes, it's going to have a slip inside, so it's going to look like it did. Where did I put that stuff? So I got a big roll of this, unfortunately off of Amazon. It's a 1/2 inch. This was like $4 and something, and it's 27 yards. So I'm going to cover the seams on the top. And then when I put the skirt part together, I'm going to cover those seams. And then also when I attach it, I'll be covering that seam as well and stitching that one down. So none of this polyester. Like you can see, they have polyester edging around the zipper. That is not going to touch my skin either. I can't believe my back is still broken in. Okay, then that has been helping me break up the work on my whip. If you have seen the last couple of episodes, you know that I ended up getting off on the pattern, and I ended up knitting the chart diagonally, and which doesn't exactly work for a hat. And I also ended up a couple of rows I repeated more than once, and I had to very carefully pick it back out. And I have a tool for that. That has been working really well. So we'll cover that in a minute. But because I made those mistakes, my brain was extremely over anxious about not making any more mistakes in this hat, because I feel like I should have finished it a long time ago, frankly. So I went and got some, don't have it here on the desk. I went and got some hot pink seed beads that were not silver lined, because when they are silver lined, they end up fading like that. I have no idea why. These were not in the sun, and it still did it. So that's not something I want to gift to people, right? I had forgotten how long it took to thread seed beads on a hoop that size. But I did get it done. Okay, come on, Zoom. Let's share. No, I want to share the screen. Come on. Oh, why is it not? Why is it not sharing? It says I'm sharing. Hang on. Let me stop that. Let's redo it. There we go. Okay. Where is my picture set? Here we go. All right. So here, side by side, you can see the hot pink beads without the silver lining compared to the ones that were silver lined and then ended up fading. So I was very thankful I was able to find some of these at my local Michael's. I don't live that far away from Shipwreck Beads, but I checked their website and they just didn't have anything. So before I went to all the trouble to drive over there, I wanted to see if they even had any in stock, and I couldn't tell whether they did or not. And I'm just like, not wanting to be out on the road around people right now is like the only way I can describe that, right? Anyway, okay. So those kind of helped me break things up, working on that dress and working on the beads. And this is the tool that I showed in the last episode. This is magnetic, right? And I've got all my rows marked in different colors. And this looks like, let me take the magnets off. I found this on Ravelry several years ago. It's called the Tam of Rassilon. I'm a big Doctor Who fan. And you can see that's what it's supposed to look like, right? So I don't know why the white part is in blue and what's supposed to be blue is in white. I have no idea. That does not help with tracking. I can tell you straight up. But it's going to look really pretty when it's finally done. Hang on, let me. That goes there. That goes there. Okay. And these were a gift, Mother's Day gift. But I believe they ordered them off of Amazon. This is a Prim ruler. You can see it has a red line through the magnifier. I think this was $15. These are normally cross stitch supplies. This and the magnetic thing is Dritz. They do say that they carry them at Michael's, but I know they ordered it off of Amazon because they didn't want to go over there in case they were out and then still have to order them. So I have actually gotten it off the circulars and onto the double points. Let me lift this carefully. Just as a reminder, these are 2 strands of blue mohair and cashmere, and 2 strands of white, 2 strands of blue. Oh my gosh, my ring has gotten hooked in that one. And let me turn this inside out. I absolutely love these birch needles from Knit Picks, and I was so upset. It's like about 3 months after I discovered Knit Picks, they got bought out by a private equity firm. We can talk about that in another episode. I know there's other knitting podcasters who have covered the trend of private equity to try to buy up all of our supply sources for knitting and everything. So I no longer am subscribed to anything from Knit Picks. Anyway, So you can see how this is looking like the picture for the hat. And you can tell that is very close to completion. So we are still on a full episode every 2 weeks and hopefully a short in the off weeks. So I would hope in the next 2 weeks, I will be able to show you a finished product, and also have been able to figure out if I joined the sleeves onto my cardigan correctly. It's a bottom up sweater, and then you join it all together and then you decrease it up to the neck. And I've done one other sweater like that. Didn't come, I mean, it looks great. It just, the sizing for me is not the best. Plus it also coincided with me losing quite a lot of weight. So that didn't help, right? Anyway, so that's where I am on the whip, and taking that break and just going really slow. I have found I really cannot do more than 2 rows in one sitting, or I'm going to start going in my head because I messed it up before. So it is slower going than I like, but that's one of those things, you know, do your best work and the time should take care of itself. The goal is a quality knitted piece. We're not winning awards for doing it like a sprint, right? I don't know if the days are gone when I could knit very quickly and accurately, but right now I can't do both. So I just have to deal with that. I do think, and I finally have a doctor's appointment scheduled for it. I finally got my health insurance straightened out. I do think I have the autoimmune disorder that my mother had. I'm actually more native than my mom. She only had one native parent. I have both native parents. And there was a study done by the National Institute of Health on this particular autoimmune disorder, and they did it in eastern Oklahoma, which is where all 3 of my tribes come from. And I mean, you know, since the removal, right? And they were all in the Southeast before anyway. So that study had quite a lot of Native American women in it. And it said, why is this still going? Okay. Obviously there was an update to Zoom. I missed. Anyway, they found that Native women in that area were 30% higher risk to develop this autoimmune disorder, and they do not present in the way that non-native people do. Like, the first symptom with non-native people is that your immune system attacks your saliva glands, thinking that your saliva glands are like some sort of parasitic growth in your mouth, right? But that's not the way that it presents at first. And I don't know if my generalized anxiety disorder is independent of that. It could be part of it. The fatigue is profound. And I have found it's unique. It's not like anything else. I've got 7 kids, y'all. I had half of them at home. I've dug out gardens to plant rose bushes in wealthy people's yards, and I've done all kinds of work, right? Food service, retail, on my feet, 8 hours a day. This is an entirely different kind of fatigue. And in the last, I want to say week to week and a half, I've started having some fibromyalgia episodes. And if you don't have fibromyalgia, I know what to call it, because years ago I had a neighbor across the street that had fibromyalgia. So we talked extensively about her fibromyalgia. So I know what I'm looking at, right? If you don't have it, it's like a cross between that achy that you get when you're starting to come down with a flu and an arthritis kind of thing, or sometimes it has a hint of I overdid it when I lifted weights, kind of lactic acid ache. So that's going to be I won't have an update on that in the next episode, I don't think, unless I do it a day late like I did this one. If I wait and record on the day after my doctor's appointment, yes, I could include that. Anyway, so we cover 4 points in here. So we cover the whips and the other things that have been either helping or interfering with that, right? Point 4 is I did finally get that short uploaded on how to properly block your knitted or crocheted items. So remember, if you've been told you need to soak your items before you block them, that is totally wrong. It will wreck your knitting. It will distort it. The point of blocking is to lightly steam everything so the stitches cozy up next to each other, and remember that that's where they're supposed to go after they get washed. Okay, and if you wash your hands before you sit down to knit every time, you do not need to worry about any dirt or anything else getting into your knitting. Okay, it is so incredibly wrong to soak it first. It can really damage your knitted or crochet project and make it really difficult for those stitches to remember how they need to go back and cozy up to each other as they dry after they've been washed. If you have not seen that short, and it is a short, I cover very thoroughly the points of how and why. Go to my shorts playlist from my channel view and you can see that there. It's the very last short that I did. It should be right at the top. Okay. So in conclusion, we have covered 4 primary points. My thumbs hurt, sorry. 4 primary points in this podcast. We covered the importance of making sure your knitting project stays clean from the get-go so dirt doesn't get embedded in it. Briefly covered what happened to mine when I didn't listen to my grandmother. Then number 2, we centered ourselves before we got started, which is a ritual and a practice that we need to get in the habit of to make sure we are calm, we are got nice even breaths, we're in control of our nervous system and our thoughts as we sit down to do knitting. And frankly, I would recommend it for any kind of project that you're starting. Yes, I repeat these 2 things in every episode in season 1 because, as I said, I have no expectation that who is watching now may have seen episode 1. Then I reviewed my whips progress and the few things that I broke up that work with to keep my brain from anxiety over focusing. And then is point 4, I gave you an update on the most recent short on the most important finishing technique for knitting or crocheting, how to block correctly. All right. In the next podcast, we'll continue with the episodes being twice a month instead of weekly, as I mentioned a few minutes ago. I have a student who has generously booked me for 20 hours of one-to-one. So I need to give them the time and attention that they deserve for improving their spoken English. I'm still working on how to reliably upload a short in the off week. But be sure to check the post tab for any written updates. I did do one about this episode being delayed. I've only done a few of those community posts, and honestly, I forget to do that with the other channels that I follow. I am still thinking about making a dedicated Buy Me a Coffee account for those who might want to support this podcast in return for free pattern access. Of course, you're always welcome to buy any of my patterns that I have on my Ravelry account, but I'm thinking of putting upcoming patterns that I've designed into Buy Me a Coffee first, so that you guys can get first access and you can get it for free. Let me know what you would prefer. Is that something that's important to you, or I should just run with what I think is going to work? This is knitters are always a community, right? And so I definitely want some input there on what works for you. Because this isn't just me turning on Zoom and highlighting my whips every 2 weeks. All right. If you liked this podcast, please consider subscribing so you get notified when the next one is posted, and give the video a like. Please double check to make sure you're still subscribed if you subscribed already. YouTube has recently been unsubscribing people without their knowledge. I saw a video on this just yesterday, and I had just caught that YouTube had unsubscribed me from one of the knitters that I follow here. I was not happy. Okay. So double check if you subscribed before, go in there and make sure that you are still subscribed. You know, this AI running everything is an entirely different topic for another time, but I suspect that that's why I got unsubscribed. I mean, that was somebody, I have followed her channel for over a year, and my subscription was just not there. So I resubscribed. And remember that when you hit the subscribe button, there is no charge for that. That is completely free. This is not, I have absolutely no plans to do a membership thing that you pay for, like you can do on YouTube channels, and then post a members only video. I have no intention of doing that. If I decide to do that, it's going to be inside a dedicated Buy Me a Coffee account for this podcast. Right now, the Buy Me a Coffee link that is in the description actually goes with my educator support channel. So if you are a knitter and an educator, you may want to check that out. I don't have a lot there now, but they have updated it where you can put videos in there, right? As always, please let me know in the comments any concerns you might have. What's your experience with knitting? Has it always been stress relief? Are you new to knitting? Would you like to hear some newbie tips and tricks from my experience? Because I've been knitting since I was 7. And is there a technique or a specific knitting question you might have that you want me to answer? For example, why I don't do turn-tail socks anymore and I do tube socks, that could be a question. Anyway, until next time, I want to wish you happy knitting, and you've got this. Just take a breath and you can do it. All right. I will see you next time.